This is a cat, and not just any cat. This is my cat. His name is Frickers, and he is the best cat in the history of all cats, period. This has been scientifically proven. Frickers is concerned for cats everywhere. He has come to me, he has requested that this episode of the channel be solely and completely devoted to rewrapping the rope on kitty scratching posts. He feels like there is a global problem, like none known to felines to this point in history, where there are scratching posts all over the place in various states of shambles and disrepair. So today on the channel, I'm gonna take Frickers' scratching post apart. I'm gonna examine how it's built. I'm gonna rewrap it with some new rope, and I'm gonna surprise him when he next comes to visit. So if that sounds like something you're down with, stay with me till the end. For now, let's get going. So you've seen a cat scratch before. They reach their front claws out and they drag them downward, usually on a vertical surface, sometimes on a horizontal surface. This action is pretty important to the cat. It helps remove the husk on the outside of the claws and reveals like a sharper, better claw. It's a pretty natural thing for a cat to do. It also exercises the muscles in the forearms of the cat, stretches out its spine and sort of limbers it up. It's like they're practicing getting ready for hunting. There are also scent and sweat glands between the pads of a cat's feet. So when they hit the scratching post with their front paws and scrape down the surface, they're marking it. They're saying, this is my place. I have read when you give your cat a scratching post in your home, it's kind of like giving your kid his or her own bedroom. You're saying, look, this is your spot. You have a place in this house. Put your scent all over this thing, it's yours. And that's a great gift to give a cat. It doesn't cost very much. It's pretty easy to build one of these things. And if you've already got one and it's getting a little frayed, it's super easy and super cost effective to recover it with new rope. And your cat is really gonna appreciate it. So here I go. So Frickers seems to really like this design. I'm not gonna actually change anything about the design of the scratching post. I'm not gonna change the height of the rope. I'm not gonna change the thickness of the rope. I think Frickers really loves the stability of the A-shaped design of this. I think he feels super confident when he puts all of his weight on it and starts pulling down. That's pretty important, right? So he really likes this. I'm just gonna replicate what the factory did and just change out the rope itself. The rope on a kitty scratching post like this is usually made of sisal. Sisal is a kind of rope. It's made from a plant that's native to the Yucatan. It's usually all natural. Occasionally you come across some sisal rope that has chemicals put into it for one reason or another. I think you wanna be kind of careful about the kind of sisal rope you use for your cat. The reason being they don't get to wash their hands. So if they're scratching all day on a sisal rope and it's filled with some kind of chemical that could be bad for them, they're just gonna lick their paws and get it into themselves. So for this particular DIY, I picked up 100 feet of sisal rope from a place called West Coast Paracord. On Amazon, it mentioned that this was safe for pets. They called it a premium sisal rope. They said it had no additives, no insecticides. Just to check, I called the company up and asked them what it was that made this pet friendly. They got back to me within a day, so kudos to West Coast Paracord. They explained there's nothing in this rope except for sisal, that this is a kind of sisal rope that gets used for kitty scratching posts all the time. They were confident it was safe for cats, and so I'm going with it. When I open the bag, it doesn't smell weird, it doesn't feel weird, there's no film that comes off of it. I gotta say, I think this is pretty safe. You can get sisal rope that's different. You can get it at Home Depot, you can get it at Lowe's, any big box store I expect, because it's used for a variety of purposes. But I do think that if you're gonna use this for a pet, you wanna think about the fact that you wanna make sure there's no chemicals in there that could harm your pet in advance. You also wanna think about how much you want on your roll. If I look at this kitty scratching post right now and just guess, I would say there's probably 50 feet of sisal rope wrapped around this post. But then I did the math and I was a little bit surprised. This board is 9 inches wide and 1 inch deep. That means each wrap is 20 inches all the way around. When I counted the number of wraps and did the math, I realized there's like 97 feet of sisal rope wrapped around here. So if I had ordered 50 feet, I would have had to join them in the middle somewhere, probably with a staple or something like that. My guess is that wouldn't happen in a convenient spot, somewhere halfway up the scratching post. That wouldn't have worked. So I was glad to check in advance. I'd recommend you do that too, so you get enough. 100, 150 feet, probably where you're gonna wanna fall in if you're doing the average scratching post. The other thing you want to note is how big is your cat, and consequently, how big are his or her claws and paws. The diameter of the rope you choose to wrap around is going to really affect the action your cat can get when they pull down with their claws. Frickers is not a big cat. He's about 7-8 pounds. I mean, he's a beauty. Don't get me wrong, but he's little. So he doesn't have huge paws. He doesn't have huge claws. So if I came at this with like a 3/8 inch thick rope, Were I to do that every time he would pull down with his claws, it would be like a dunk, this terrible feeling going into his claws that I just don't think he'd like. He seems to really like this thickness of rope because he has the ability to cut through it. If you get a really, really thick piece of sisal rope and your cat can't cut through it, they're not going to enjoy it as much, they're not going to use it as much. If you got a really small cat or a really weak cat, they do make sisal fabric, like little carpets that you could stretch over a piece of board. That might be the best choice. It just sort of depends on your cat. Since I know Frickers likes this, I'm sticking with this. Some other things I'm noticing as I sort of look at the original design that came from the factory. They definitely use staples to hold the rope in place, but all those staples are on the back of the board. That's pretty important. Imagine you're a cat. Imagine you're dragging your claws through the rope and then you hit a staple and you pull your claw out. You're not going back to that scratching post. Like, it's just not gonna happen, right? It bites you once, you're not going back. So if you want your cat to keep using the scratching post and not shift onto the sofa or the bed or something like that, your curtains, you gotta make sure the experience works for them. So I love how the company that made this originally put the staples in very infrequently. There's not a ton of staples, and they're all on the back of the board where the cat is less likely to scratch. So as I mentioned, the design of this makes it a little bit easier to take apart as opposed to one that has glue all over it. And so that's what I do. I sort of go to town, I remove any remnants of the old staples, pull the old rope, I'm left with a bare board, and I can start again. I decide I'm gonna start at the bottom, work my way up. Obviously the top is where all the action is. So I figure if my wraps at the bottom, because I've never done this before, right? So I figure if my wraps at the bottom are kind of weak, by the time I get up to the middle and the top, where Frickers is really gonna care, I'm gonna have practiced probably, I don't know, 30 wraps, and maybe I'll be a little better. Weak logic, I don't know. But I've never done this before, so what are you gonna do? So I put in a couple of staples just to sort of anchor the rope, and then I get with wrapping. The trick with this is tight and down. You wanna pull each wrap very tight as you can, each and every one, and then once you get that, you wanna push it down onto the wrap below it. That seems to be the one and only way you can get a really nice tight wrap around the whole board. And then just getting to the top, it's really just a matter of cutting off any excess rope and fastening securely. One interesting conundrum I had was because my kitty scratch post is a closed design, for each wrap, I had to carry all the slack through the triangle that comprises the body of the cat scratch post. It was a little challenging because there's like 100 feet of it. Basically, I rolled it up using the same technique I use in the video I have about how to coil a cable. Same technique. If you want to watch that video, I'll put a link for it here. And then I just closed it up with a piece of Velcro. And if I needed any more to come off of that roll, I would stop, undo the Velcro, spool off a little more slack, and then close it up again with the Velcro so I could pass it through on each wind. And then it's done. I hope Frickers likes it. So hey, do you guys have pets? Do you make toys or exercise equipment for them? If you do, leave that in the comment section below. I really want to hear. What do you do? What did you build? How did you do it? Let me know. And otherwise, I hope that helped you out. If it did, please feel free to like or subscribe. Liking and subscribing both help a channel out. And if you could help this channel out, I'd really appreciate it. Otherwise, until next week, take care, stay safe, have fun with your DIY projects, say hi to your cat for me, and I'll see you next Saturday.